Today we're looking at Kansas in the 2024-2025 season, a little preview and predictions episode here. And before we get into Kansas, I want to let you guys know I'm going to be previewing as many college teams as possible. So if you have a favorite team you want to hear me talk about, leave it in the comments below and we'll get to that sooner than later. So Kansas, I really think it was almost like a tale of two seasons for Kansas, maybe even three seasons, really, where, they start off pretty well, and then they really get going when Johnny Furphy gets his legs under him, starts to really figure out the college game, and they have a true, starting five with DeJuan Harris, Furphy, Kevin McCullough, KJ Adams, and Hunter Dickinson, and they were flying, and so much so that they were 18-4 after beating Houston at home in a game that finished, I think, around like a 13-point win for Kansas, but really wasn't that close. Kansas got off to a really hot start, and they never really looked back. Houston was kind of able to claw their way back into the game, but it wasn't a good game for Jamal Shed, etc., and Kansas just was really humming on the offensive end of the court. Passing was phenomenal, etc. After that point, they finished the season 5-7. Now, a lot of that is because Kevin McCullough was in and out of the lineup. Hunter Dickinson picked up an injury. And while that starting lineup was really good, they really only had five guys that Coach Self could consistently rely upon. And so they finished the year 23-11 and 10-8 in the Big 12, which was fifth in the Big 12 for a Kansas team. That's bad. Let's just call it how it is for how they've done, the amount of years that they had won the Big 12 in a row. So a fifth place finish is just not going to get it done for Bill Self and company. So who's out? Well, Kevin McCullough has ran out of eligibility. He's gone. Johnny Furphy decided to enter the NBA draft. He ended up going in the second round to the Pacers. And then also Nick Timberlake and Parker Braun are both, they're both rotation guys, probably like guys 7 and 8 on the team. Timberlake, I think they're hoping to get more from, and it just didn't quite work out for them last season. So you've got four guys that you got to replace in terms of the rotation, two starters. And honestly, you probably want a fifth guy in the rotation just because of the lack of depth that Kansas had last season. So who's back? Well, they have their big trio back of DeJuan Harris, Hunter Dickinson, and KJ Adams. So you've got three starters firmly entrenched. And then Elmarco Jackson and Jamari McDowell are both back. McDowell had some moments last season where I felt like he could project it as maybe a rotation player this upcoming season. We'll have to see how that pans out with some of the players that Kansas added. And then Elmarco Jackson, unfortunately, I believe it was a patellar tendon tear, and he's going to be out for the season, which is unfortunate for him because he came into Kansas with a lot of expectations, potential draft pick in 2024. Didn't work out for him. And so the hope was, as a second-year, highly touted recruit, things could, he could turn the corner. And it's really unfortunate for him that he's going to have to wait a year to be able to get that opportunity. I kind of hope he sticks around Kansas, but it's really whatever is best for him. So who's new in Kansas? Well, at Fog Island next season, there's going to be a lot of new faces outside of the big three, if we will. They've added a number of transfers, and there's a couple of freshmen who might even be in the rotation. So AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin, I would say, are the top two just in terms of the position that they play. Because you've got your point guard, you've got your power forward center, so you got to fill in the wings. And Bill Self and his coaching staff did a great job of filling in on the wings with AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin. Different players. AJ Storr is he's a scorer, not necessarily the most efficient scorer, but he will stay consistent and getting to the basket, getting his shots in different areas of the court. Not a great three-point shooter, below 35% last year, so something to consider. But playing with DeJuan Harris and even Hunter Dickinson, he's going to get better shots than he did at Wisconsin. So I think his efficiency will improve. Now, Rylan Griffin was a really good shooter at Alabama last season, and I think Rylan Griffin has a chance to be, a draft pick somewhere in the mid-teens to 20s this season if he can continue to shoot the three and defend at a high level. He's got a really good chance to, be a high draft pick next season. But more importantly for Kansas this year, you've got a nice, five-man group, which I think is going to be their starters, the three guys plus the two wing transfers, and that sets them up for success. But what I really like that Kansas did is they said, okay, last year we had a lot of trouble with our depth. So they went out and they made sure that they were going to add as many guys so, they'd be more confident when they turn to the bench and they're looking at guys 7, 8, 9, that these guys can play and contribute. And I think, starting with Zeke Mayo, who, had a really good career at North Dakota State, I think he's going to be the sixth man for this team, mostly just because he's a guard. And so DeJuan Harris, I think, is going to start, and then they're going to want size with Storr and Griffin. But there's definitely a world where Mayo starts along with DeJuan Harris, and they only start one of Storr or Griffin. So they have got Zeke Mayo. They also brought in Shaquille Moore, who profiles more as like a rotation. Like, I feel like Zeke Mayo, just quickly going back to him, is like a six-man, but could play the minutes closer to a starter, where I feel like Shaquille Moore is going to be like a pure backup rotation kind of guard, 10, 15 minutes. He's kind of played that role in his career at Mississippi State, and before that, I believe NC State. Although there, he did play like 20 to 25 minutes. At Kansas, I just think 15 minutes is more likely. Fiore Benduga, I believe. I definitely butchered that name. I apologize. Please let me know the correct way to pronounce that in the comments. But he's a freshman big who I think will take the minutes behind Hunter Dickinson. He's very athletic. He's a little bit undersized, listed about 6'9", but he's very athletic, so that will make up for that. And we talked about Jamari McDowell earlier. Also, Rakeem Passmore is another top 50 freshman coming into Kansas. He's like 6'5" or so I'm not sure if he'll crack the rotation, but he'll be on the outside, along with guys like Noah Shelby, who I certainly see as only depth, and David Coit Jr., who actually at Northern Illinois did average 20-plus points per game. So he's got an actual much better chance than Noah Shelby, certainly, and arguably Rakeem Passmore, to be part of the rotation as another scoring, undersized guard for Kansas. So, looking ahead to the games, the schedule of next season, there are a number of intriguing matchups in the non-conference portion of the schedule. They play at home against North Carolina. They play in the Champions Classic against Michigan State this year. And they play Duke in Las Vegas. So three high-profile matchups really early on in the season. And then they also have some good non-conference opportunities, some road games with the Big East Big 12 Challenge at Creighton. Then they play at Missouri as well. And then they have a home game against NC State. So they're playing all three teams from the triangle there in the non-conference portion of their play. And so they'll get some good opportunities there. And with the Big 12 schedule being as tough as it is, it wasn't necessarily necessary for Kansas to add a ton of high-profile non-conference games because they're going to get a ton of high-quality matchups in the conference slate. And speaking of that, in conference play, their home and away games this year, so the teams they'll play twice, are Houston, Iowa State, Colorado, Kansas State, and UCF. So off the bat, Houston and Iowa State to play both those teams twice. That's 4 matchups against teams currently in the really early polls that are top 10 teams. So, and I think Iowa State actually is a bit underrated. I think Houston might be a bit overrated, but we'll see how things pan out. At home, they've got the Arizona schools, Arizona and Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and West Virginia. And on the road, they'll play Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, TCU, and Utah. I think Cincinnati could be pretty good. I think they're going to be a fringe top 25 team. I like some of the guys they were able to bring in the transfer portal. So I think those could be really tough matchups, especially the Cincinnati and Baylor matchups next season for Kansas. So I think this is going to be a really good team. It is arguably a better team than last year, but I don't think any one player is as good as Kevin McCullough was for them last season. I do think, Rylan Griffin will certainly replace Johnny Furphy pretty well. I just don't think AJ Storr, he's more of a scorer than Kevin McCullough, but I just think Kevin McCullough just made a lot of winning plays, and that's really tough to replace. But they're certainly a far deeper team, and a team that I think will go further in the NCAA tournament. I think their floor in the tournament is like a Sweet 16 team, and they certainly have all of the talent and the depth, importantly this season, to make a Final Four run. So let me know what you guys think about Kansas heading into next season, or this season, rather, at this point. It is September. We're only a couple of months away. And what other teams would you like to see me profile? Please like this video if you have not already. Helps us grow, and subscribe to the channel for more college basketball and NBA draft content. See you next time.